Hey, ba-dum-bum. Welcome to Coco Sports Fave 5. I am the huge one, Dave Coco from CocoSports.com or KOCOSports.net. It takes you to the same place. It's where the world comes to kick ass, your home for combat sports, and above all, where it's okay to be a passionate fan. And speaking of passionate fans, having his own YouTube channel, rocking the shows, Rassslin Rantin. By the way, the 3S thing always screws me up. But Rassslin
hmm
Rantin, welcome to Fave 5.
Well, hey, how you doing, Internet infantry? I'm a little toasty tonight because I was
Yeah,
watching
well,
football.
you're a little cranky about the old football games, you know? I don't keep up with the NFL as much as I want, but my beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl this year. Did they pull it out this year?
How about no? How
Uh,
about no for an answer? That no, Seahawks all the way, man. Beat Brady. I'm tired of Tom. Tom Brady is the John Cena of the NFL, as far as I'm concerned.
that's not fair. Tom
Wait, no,
Brady,
Tom Brady has talent. So
Tom Brady can lock in an STF way better than Cena.
that's probably true. He probably cries the same amount as Cena too.
All right. Well, we decided we're going to do Fave 5. Me and Rassslin Rantin, we're trying to build a community, and what we're going to do is, on Rassslin Rantin, he's going to have roundtable discussions, and on this show, we're going to have Fave 5s. And what we're going to do is, if you're over 18 and you make YouTube videos, that's the only qualification you need, we'll invite you on to our future Fave 5 and a future roundtable. So please check out Rassslin Rantin on the Twitters and on the YouTubes. There is a link in the doobly-doo, and it's Rassslin Rantin with 3 S's.
Wrestling.
Super spectacular. Now, I
Yes.
picked this one as our Fave 5 because I forgot who the commenter was. A member of the Internet Infantry wrote this question down for me, and then, just like a whore looking for fucking a new bed to sleep in, went to your video and asked the same question. And I was like, all right, I see what's going on, Internet Infantry. So I figured instead of us making 2 separate videos, this will be our Fave 5 video. Our Fave 5, I think we have a tie, so it's really Fave 6, but, you know, we got to go with Fave 5. Best promo cutters of all time. Of all time. And, you know, we're going to go with our lifetime. Because, you know, you can go Gorgeous George. That was before my time. I don't know how old Rassslin Rantin is. There's some really classic wrestling. But we're going our lifetime. So, of all time, our lifetime.
All right, time.
5 of all time. And, you know, I have a couple. We usually go with a couple nominees. You know, people that just missed out on the list. And to me, some of them are going to be Florida indie guys, but they really could cut a great promo. The Black Nature Boy Scoot Andrews, he was really popular when AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels first started out. A lot of people may know him for being a part of the first Ring of Honor show. He could cut a promo, and this generation going right now in Florida indies, I would say Simon Says. And the thing that Scoot Andrews and Simon Says had in common with these Florida indies, you loved when they were cutting promos on someone, but you also prayed to your god Terry Funk they wouldn't cut a promo on you because they were just so mean-spirited and quick-done. And then me and Rassslin Rantin, we both kind of got this guy off the list, but I think at one part of his career, he was one of the best of all time, and then it kind of faded. But missing both of our lists because we talked about this beforehand, Chris Jericho.
Yeah,
I
Jericho
was
definitely,
close.
definitely. He was
Yeah.
close. I think he had that. If for fans who go back, you go back to the year 2000. Austin was out, and it was The Rock was number one, and Jericho was solid number two, and that's when Jericho was doing his, promos on Stephanie McMahon, calling her a nasty, dirty, filthy, trashy, brutal, bottom-feeding trash bag hoe. That whole little era he had there was pretty cool.
Yeah, and not only that, but even in WCW when he listed the moves and was trying to get over and calling out Goldberg, he had a lot of fun stuff in WCW. If you go back and watch it, and then here's one that I might get heel heat because I'm a huge ECW fan, but it's with this character it's either hit or miss. And when he missed, it was horrible, but when he hit, it was a home run. Raven. I thought Raven was a really good promo cutter at times.
Yeah, Ravens on my almost list as well.
All right. Is there anyone I left off my almost list that you have on your almost list?
Mine's going to be a fairly recent one. Kevin Owens when he was in ROH. especially through some of the later storylines when he had problems kayfabe with the Office. Some of that stuff I really really loved, and a lot of people are pointing to it now with uh, Kevin Steen, sorry, with him being Kevin Owens in NXT, and they're like, well, if you thought CM Punk dropped pipe bombs, wait till they let Owens, if they do, wait till they let him rip it on the microphone. So I'm looking forward to that. That's why Owens, Steen, kind of on a maybe list.
Yeah, and all that, but like now I don't know about you, but there's barely out of the active WWE and active TNA roster, active, and that's the key word. I don't think there's anyone that even comes close to an all-time list, except maybe Kevin Owens. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking up and down that roster, and I'm just like, yeah, they're stuck. You know what I mean? Do you agree or disagree, or do you think there's active members now that could maybe make a list or in the future besides Owens?
Oh, you know who I'm going to say.
John Cena?
Hell no. I'm going to say give him a couple years. I'll say Bray because oh yeah, Jake Roberts is on my almost list too. So he didn't make the top 5. He should have probably, but
Yeah,
um,
well, the thing about Jake is he was so original and so different at the time that he stuck out. Like, I just remember when Jake the Snake talked, you listened. You were just like, whoa, 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 Jake's talking, so it was something special. All
yeah.
right, let's start our countdown. We have an official list. We are a bit cheesy, but hey, it's not a science. I have a tie, and you have a tie. So we have a Fave 5 plus 1. All right, my number 5, and, I might get heel heat from the old timers, but I loved him in Ring of Honor. I loved him anytime he grabs a microphone, even in the UFC, CM Punk. In Ring of Honor, he cut this promo where he's a snake and you can't trust him. And it was just an amazing promo. And at every level, Punk could really talk. Ohio Valley, he cut some great promos. The pipe bomb, pretty much, I think, and I hold CM Punk to a very high standards. I'm a CM Punk fanboy. I really am. But I think if it wasn't for CM Punk being successful, there wouldn't be so many great indie wrestlers right now in NXT. And I also think if it wasn't for his pipe bomb, I think a lot of fans would have gave up. Like, that brought fans back. That brought wrestling to be cool again. I am a big fan of his, and I think he's one of the best of all time. And, I might get heel heat from the older guys, but I think the closest to being on the active roster or the most recent guy that I think you could say is one of the best of all times is CM Punk. Who's your number 5, and do you agree or disagree with Punk?
Yeah, I would agree with Punk. I'm gonna say I based my list on whether or not the person made me want to watch a match. So that's how I kind of ranked them, and entertainment value. So my number 5 is going back to the '80s, the old American Dream, the Bull of the Woods, Dusty Rhodes, and his lisp. And I loved Rhodes growing up as a kid because even if you watch his promos now, he had so much passion in him. Rhodes could talk your butt into his seat to see him fight Ric Flair, to see him fight Tully Blanchard. When Barry Windham turned on him, he acted like his son had stabbed him in the heart or something. Rhodes was the common man. He talked to the people, which was the great contrast between him and Flair. He could rap. Even though he was a big fat blonde-haired white guy in the middle in the mid '80s, he had a little bit of that street to him, a little bit of that everyday blue collar to him. So he could talk the talk, he could walk the walk, and it fit his persona. Him going back and forth with Flair, I think with Flair was a Lakers fan and Dusty was a Celtics fan, so they had that whole thing going with them. It was just phenomenal. Dusty could talk you into an arena back in the '80s, especially in the Crockett era.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and also Punk. Dusty is on my list, but I'll talk more about him when he comes up on my list. But I think one thing CM Punk and Dusty and a lot of promo cutters is they can talk you into the building. They get you excited for the match. And on top of that, King of Queens is a television show. I don't know. I think it's finally off the air. But I remember watching King of Queens and then talking to my friends, and the character in King of Queens, everyone could relate to him. You know what I mean? They're like, no, 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 I'm the King of Queens. I'm the King of Queens. I think Dusty Rhodes and CM Punk, some small ways, you can relate to them and you can root for them, and you know what I'm saying? So that's part of being a good promo cutter. All right, my number 4 is my tie. I couldn't bump one of them off. You know what I mean? I'm like, which one should I bump off? It is Mick Foley. You know, some people say Foley is God, but those who watch Coco Sports know the other guy that I'm going to mention on this list, Terry Funk, is the real wrestling god. I gave it a tie. I couldn't bump either of these guys. Forever! Forever! I remember doing an interview with Terry Funk on radio, and he just went in, and I was like, oh my God, he could turn it on at any moment. You know what I mean? And you're just intrigued by what he said. And I love Mick Foley. I really do. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But let me tell you something. He fucking sucked at wrestling. Let's be completely honest. He put his body through hell. But above that, there was tons of hardcore guys that put their bodies through hell that didn't have the career Mick Foley had. What made Mick Foley even special is just the story. And recently there was, what was it? It was a pay-per-view coming up with a cage match between the Shield members. Did you know what that event was?
Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell. And sometimes you forget how magical and how great these promo cutters are. But when Mick Foley went out there, I was like, oh, who gives a shit? You know me, I'm all negative. I'm Negative Nelly. And I'm like, who gives a shit? Dude, like 30 seconds of talking, I'm like, I give a shit, Foley. You're absolutely right. And Foley wasn't even in the match. You were just throwing your fucking money towards the ring. So I absolutely love Mick Foley and Terry Funk, and I couldn't bump either one off. And the thing is, they love each other, and they're meant to be in my Fave 5 list together. You know, if I called Mick Foley or prayed to Terry Funk, they'd be like, no, I understand. We can go in together. Who's your number 4? And
yeah, I definitely agree with Foley and Funk being on your list. They were great promo cutters. You know, for that match you're talking about, Hell in a Cell. I mean, if you remember, fans going back to that, Ambrose and Rollins. That was when Ambrose had brought in the dummy and was doing all that crap in the ring, and Rollins came in and rambled, and they were completely not selling the match, and then Foley came in and basically schooled them and sold their match for them better than they could after 10 minutes of BS. So,
one question I have for you. Do you think with work, because Dean Ambrose looks like a diamond in the rough, do you think with work he could be one of the better promo cutters, like in a couple years?
Yeah, well, he saved Monday Night, and anybody who saw my review of Monday Night's Raw, my biggest complaint about Monday Night was the enormous amount of backstage bullshit and promos that were just terrible, and they gave him pretty much a shit sandwich with that whole psychiatrist bit, and he actually made it entertaining. Just his timing. He has timing sometimes. He has he has good catchphrases sometimes. He divvies it up a little bit. So once he gets, he needs to. It seems like he hasn't found quite what his balance is. So when he finds his balance between being intense and being funny, and he finds that balance, like Austin found that balance. When Ambrose can find it, he'll get it. Rollins, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Time will go. But I think right now they need promo cutters more than anything, because the Attitude Era, yeah, people PG, all that, but if you just turn it on and you go back and watch the Monday Night Wars, or you go back and watch the Attitude Era, take away the matches. Take away the blood. Take away the cursing. It's still a lot more entertaining in the ring. You know, I mean, just the promos alone. All right, so who's your number 4? Did you say your number 4?
Number 4 is my tie as well. It's a tie between two more authority figures or managers. My tie is Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon. They're tied for number 4. McMahon, for me, again, going back to the Attitude Era, I mean, anybody who saw McMahon, he's probably I think he's number one on my biggest villains of all time. Him cutting a promo back then and really working off of that real life hatred that fans had for him at the time after the Montreal screw job.
I'm sure that goes away eventually, right?
Yeah, really. His inflections and that, he gets that McMahon, and you're fired, and, all of that stuff he brought to the table, and he's an intelligent guy. He knows how to play the crowd, and people love. Even today, when he comes to the ring, he comes out to the arena, he gets cheered. But all of us, hardcore wrestling fans, we really got tired of him. Like, God, why don't you just leave the company? Because you won't let it evolve, but you still like to see him come to the ring as a character. Heyman.
Yeah, one of my favorite Vince McMahon promos, and a lot of people shit on it, but I loved when he introduced the NWO. And he's like, I'm gonna be like, it was like crazy Vince McMahon at the highest level when he was inject the poison.
I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill my creation.
Yeah, and then of course another really famous one. It was me. It was me. I thought that was really good. So yeah, I enjoy it. I'll talk more about Heyman later. Not giving any spoilers, but my number 3, Ric Flair. I grew up a poor little white boy in white trash New Jersey. And I dreamed of being rich because you could see the casinos out the window and see, you know what I mean? And to me, Ric Flair was it, and he could cut a promo better than anyone. And, like, when he was in his prime at NWA, WCW, that's when I was growing up. And he was legit one of my heroes. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I got into a little bit of money because I invested well and started businesses. And I know nothing about fashion. I absolutely hate fashion. My brother-in-law makes fun of me because all I own is free clothes. Like, I don't pay for clothes. If you give me a T-shirt, that's my wardrobe. And sweatpants or Armani suits. And my wife is like, dude, you run companies. You live in Hawaii. You're living the good life. You should dress not like Mick Foley. And we went, and I didn't know what Hugo Boss was. I didn't know what any of these other companies were. But I do remember fucking Armani. And the reason I remember Armani is because Ric Flair was yelling that he was always wearing Armani suits. So to me, that's product placement at its best. I remember as a little kid, I'm like, all right, if I got to wear suits, I'll wear Armani. And people are like, how do you know Armani? You don't even know Hugo Boss. You don't know DKNY. You don't know any of these brand names. How do you know Armani? And I just remember Ric Flair opening up his jacket saying, I wear Armani. So I always thought it was the best suit. So that's it. So my closet consists of Armani suits and sweatpants. So I either go with the Ric Flair look or the Mick Foley look. Nothing in between. My brother-in-law, because he's really fashionable, he always makes fun of me. He's like, there's things called jeans and khakis. I'm like, nope, it's suit or sweats. But Ric Flair, growing up, because I didn't have exactly the best of parents or father, deep story, but like he was legit like a role model. I was like, man, I want to make a lot of money so I can act like that. And then, eventually you're like, that's not exactly the best way to act, as we're learning now, as this generation of kids are learning now through Ric Flair. It's not the best way to roll. But yeah, I loved Ric Flair's promos, and he was the bad guy, and it was just completely awesome. And a lot of people, I grew up in New Jersey. That's WWF country. And a lot of people were like Hulkamaniacs. And, a big thing that people defend John Cena and defend, Hulk Hogan and try to knock smarks is say, well, when you were a little kid, you liked Hulk Hogan. And I'll tell you, that's bullshit. I fucking despised Hogan. I was Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen from fucking day one. From day one. Fuck Hulkamania and fuck the Cena Nation. All about the Four Horsemen. But, man, could he cut a promo? And still to this day, I honestly believe, Ric Flair, if you read the internet, read the news, it's not even the internet. It's just kind of like fact now. He's not the best with money, and he's a little bit hurting for money. I honestly have no idea why he's not a manager. I've said this a million times, but if I keep repeating it, it might happen. I think Ric Flair should manage Okada in WWE. Like, get a bunch of wrestlers who can't cut promos, and I think that's what Lawler should be doing too. I don't think Lawler has the right job, but yeah, I would love to see Ric Flair still cut promos and all that. But the problem is they always connect them with someone who can already cut promos, which seems to be kind of a waste, you know?
Well, the reason King's not going to be a manager is because you don't want him backstage chasing the divas all day long, and the reason that Flair, there's one reason Flair is not going to be in that role, and I go back to what was that, the 2K, whatever got Jim Ross fired,
Oh yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
the 2K Sports panel. No, they're not gonna do that with Flair, unless he stops drinking. So who knows? But ironically enough, yeah, Flair's my number three as well. Um, I'll take it a little bit of a different bent. If I'm going to focus mainly on his Crockett days. So me growing up as a kid in Maryland, we're on the Mason Dixon line literally of the country and of the wrestling world. So we got WWF and we got NWA. Crockett territory butted up. We actually had more Crockett shows than we had WWF shows. And Flair, when he would go on, this goes back to what I was talking about with Dusty Rhodes. Flair could sell you into the seats with his feud with Dusty. Plus the fact Flair notoriously, or not notoriously, but famously, was known for getting over younger talent. And he would promote a match with Barry Windham with as much intense when Barry Windham was a young guy, with Lex Luger, with Sting, with Ricky frickin' Morton, with Michael P.S. Hayes, Ronnie Garvin. He'll promote those matches as if they were as big as his matches with Dusty or Magnum or Ricky Steamboat. And he would make those guys look like $1,000,000 when he's on TV. Plus, on that Superstation Saturday show, and anybody who was around back in the day, Saturdays, 6:05 p.m., TBS Superstation, 2 hours of wrestling every Saturday. When Flair would come out, and he's got the belt. He put the belt over. This is 15 pounds of gold. This means you're the best. This means you're the champion. That's what we don't see a lot today. Anyway, well, we don't even have a world champion in WWE anyway. But that's what you used to see, is they would put over the belt. And why I say that's even more of a reason for him to be considered one of the best promo cutters of all time is because Crockett, to me as a kid back then, didn't seem like it was too far off from the WWF. Even though you look back at the videos now and they were in these small arenas and stuff like that. I mean, they did money, but they weren't as big as the WWF.
When we grew up, how much money the company made never came in a factor in our fanhood. Like, I notice now the younger generation, and not even the younger generation, but fans of today, how much money the company makes matters on their fandom. That never came. That never once did someone. You'd see NWA and it would be like in a gym and there'd be like 40 people there. Then you'd see WWF and Madison Square Garden would be packed. And as a fan, I don't ever remember how much money they made being a factor like it is today.
It's not like it was like it is today. I remember, well, back in the 80s, I do remember WWF before 87, I want to say. They and NWA, the house lights were always down. So the only lights you saw when you were watching a show were on the ring. WWF, I guess after WrestleMania 3, they started lighting the arenas. But NWA still did not light the arenas, I think, up until Turner bought it and they tried to make it, spruce it up a little bit more. But you watched the NWA show, you really weren't aware how many people were in the audience because the Greensboro Coliseum was dark. The Omni in Atlanta, the background was dark. The lights were just on the ring. But Flair putting over that belt and the way he would talk about, hey, I got limos and he legitimately did this because I live in Baltimore and the people at the Omni downtown, what used to be the Omni in Baltimore, have lots of stories about Ric Flair parties when the NWA would come to town back in the 80s. I mean, he legitimately lived it. The guy one time went on TV and I think it was a Baltimore show. He said on the promo, girls, if you're between 5'6", you're for JJ. If you're about brunette and about 5 to 5'2", you're for double A. And the 6-foot blondes are for the Nature Boy. And we'll be at the Marriott in Baltimore at 11 o'clock. And legitimately, people would show up and had a party. I mean, Flair went. I mean, this is all real life stuff. It's all total shoot. And Flair had a way of doing that. He had a way of just because it was him. He just lived his promo. He lived who that was. He lived that lifestyle, and you really got the sense that this guy was a world champion. He was 80s. He was Gordon Greco. He was Wall Street. He was that uber yuppie American multi-million dollar playboy guy, which was a great contrast to at that time what, like Dave said, the WWF was Hulk Hogan, and the Americana squeaky clean Boy Scout. Flair was kind of and the NWA as a whole was a contrast to that, and Flair, without a doubt, by him putting over the belt, by him putting over his lifestyle, by him putting over his younger opponents and building them up, is what made the NWA and Crockett territory seem absolutely legit back then, above everything else.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved everything about that. I mean, just he like when you turned on NWA and saw Ric Flair, it didn't matter who the opponent was because you thought, oh, they have a chance. And the thing is, WWF, and they still do this, they focus on Hulk Hogan being great. But the problem is, as a kid, I was like, Hulk Hogan's not great. His opponents suck. No one challenges Hogan. You know what I mean? And Ric Flair would come in with anyone and put him over. And you're just like, oh, well, look, he's the champ. He's battling. Look how fucking challenging it is. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the Superman problem with writing comic books for Superman. A lot of people say that, a guy who can't be beat, what do you do with him in the story? Whereas Flair was vulnerable all over the place. And anybody he faced, that's what Flair made his career off of, going to different territories, especially during the NWA territory days, and making their number one star, whether it's a Kerry Von Erich in world class, whether he went to the Pacific Northwest, down to Florida, down to Georgia Championship Wrestling. He'd take the number one guy, make it look like the guy can win the championship, sometimes have that dusty finish where, oh, he won the belt. Oh, wait, no, something happened and he didn't win the belt. He did that so much. That's the difference between those two characters and why Flair endured longer than Hogan did. Because for me, Hogan lost his, like when Hogan was going against Andre at WrestleMania 3, that was, I think, the last time I was really a Hogan fan because Andre was such, he was fucking the juggernaut. There's no way Hogan's beating him. And
Yeah,
after that,
I wrote a column. It was the first column I wrote on the site. Is that when Hogan beat Andre, that was the first time I realized wrestling wasn't real. Like I was like, there's no way Andre couldn't win. And when Andre lost, I was like, nope, it's fucking fake. And I tore down my posters and didn't watch wrestling for like maybe 6 months. There was a whole summer after WrestleMania 3. And it's so funny too, because like, it's a pretty funny story, but my uncle bet me he knew. My uncle was a real scumbag. But yeah, I out. And the thing is, the NWA lighting style, that's how they did with boxing too. Yeah. And even to this day, as a kid and now, I hate Superman, I hate John Cena, I hate Hulk Hogan. It's to make a more accurate statement, it's like playing Madden on easy and then saying you're the fucking best. It's like, whatever, dude. We do got some comments here. Let's go to some comments, and then we'll get our last two. Mixer549.Dale Moore says, great show. Now to all the YWC, see the subscribe button. Push it. Get Coco Sports. You won't be sorry. Thank you for the comments. Also, check out Rassslin Rantin's show. My top 5. Here's Mixer's top 5. Harley Race. Oh, okay. Not bad. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. That's an interesting lineup. I don't know if I agree with it, but hey, it's your favorite, my favorite. That's what it's about.
I like the Shawn Michaels one.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels had his moments, but Bret Hart, I love Bret Hart. And I don't know. Hulk Hogan's one of those. It's a lot better now. Like when I go back and watch it on the network or on classic stuff, I'm like, oh, he wasn't that bad at cutting promos. But when I was a kid, I was like, this fake fucking bullshit tan fucking balding giant. You know what I mean? Like, I think my fandom got in the way of how good he was. Top promo, Mike Works, Kings. We live in a different era, so bear with me. It's okay. On 2 separate spots for these talent. Promo legends, Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah. Jake the Snake, Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, The Rock. And then, oh, it goes on. I
Yes.
think I would learn my lesson. But no, I trust that. Why would you do that to me? Why? Thomas says Dick Murdoch, Jake, Heenan, Piper, Gary Hart. These are some
Yep.
great lists.
Gary
And
Hart.
back to I Am Mikey. He said The Rock, Steve Austin, Booker T. Booker is hilarious. Booker does have his moments.
Shucky Ducky.
Future,
Shucky Ducky.
yeah. Future Mike Work Kings. My favorite is between him and Rock. The 1 + 1 = Thomas Jefferson sucker.
Yes.
Dude, I laughed so effing hard, and it's one of those things, like, sometimes a joke just connects with you, a moment connects with you comedy-wise. I laugh every single time. Like, you can just reference it. If I ever meet you, and you're like, 1 + 1 = Thomas Jefferson sucker, I will always fucking laugh every time. And then here's his list of future Mike Work Kings. Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, Kevin Steen, Sami Zayn, a.k.a. El Generico, Prince Devitt, Carl Anderson, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan. And all right, we'll see. We'll see where time goes. But thank you for the comments. We'll try to get to them again. I do apologize if I miss your comments. YouTube is really good at hiding comments. Like, I'll be all sad and depressed. I'm like, oh, I don't got any live comments. Oh, well, fuck my life. I am over. And then I'll go click, and I'll be like, here's 27 comments. And I'm like, I'm a sad dick. All right. We're up to number 2. Dun-da-da! My number 2, I wasn't a fan of him. And, like, he was the opposite of Ric Flair. But there's no fucking way Hard Times doesn't get you through hard times. Like, it is the greatest goddamn promo of all time. Like, Ric Flair, hey, he might be great every now and he might be that's kind of insulting, but he could be at a very great level all the time. Foley, Punk, Funk, all these guys, but Dusty, in my humble opinion, had the greatest promo of all time with Hard Times. I don't think you can top it. I remember being a Ric Flair guy going, fuck Dusty Rhodes. And halfway through, I was like, the American Dream's gotta win, I just think it's a short promo, and I don't know if it lives up to the hype that I'm giving it or that history has given it, but when you were a little kid watching that live, and he just says Hard Times, that's a timeless promo. It is a timeless promo, and if, there wasn't copyright fucking douchebaggery out, I would actually play the Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo. But I think Dusty Rhodes, he's a great promo cutter, but the reason I put him so high on the list, not only is he a great promo, in my humble opinion, that is the greatest promo of all time. Greatest promo of all time. You obviously seen Hard Times.
Oh yeah. The thing about that one too is that it was from the heart, because halfway through it you can tell in his voice the inflection when he's talking about somebody just on his job and he got replaced by a computer, took your job. That's hard times. When you've been washing dishes for 20 years and then they give your job away because they want to tear it down and put some condos up. That's hard times. He was again, Dusty could talk to the people and empathize with things that they could relate to, and pull them into the ring with him. So he's fighting for them, and that's what made him so great.
And before we go to your number 2, the one thing is, what year was that? That had to be somewhere in the 80s, right?
Yeah, that was...
I mean, we don't have to be exact, but we'll just say, we'll just say mid-80s.
It was probably earlier, because I think that was before his mid-80s Flair feud, if I want to say. Because I can see the video in my head, and it's that really old 70s NWA background, so it's not... Say what?
You can see the cheap television set in the background, like the
it was like that honeycomb, mauve puce-colored thing they had back in NWA. I was like, that was a little bit before my time, so I know it was before 85. I'll put it that way.
Well, the thing is, it was in the 80s, and in the Marine Corps, we referenced that. So we were about 17, 18 in the 90s. I don't want to give away my age too much. I'm old, that's the point. But I remember, we didn't see that promo until we were little kids, and we were in the Marines, and we would do it all the time. be like, oh, people shooting at us, hard times. Gotta eat the MREs, hard times. And like, it's just ridiculous. And no matter if you're an old school pro wrestling fan, no matter how shitty your life is, like, we talk off air and be like, hey, guess what? I got fucking Pitbull living in my ass. Whatever your hard times are, if another wrestling fan comes up to you and just starts going, hard times, it cheers you up. It actually brings joy to your shitty life. And you can't, dude, it's pro wrestling and it's a promo. Nothing's better than that. All right, so who's your number 2?
My number 2 is one of your previous ones. That would be CM Punk.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was going to be that high on the list.
People are going to be mad at me for that one. Well, here's again, getting people into the seats and getting people wanting to watch and entertainment value. So they're ranked. That's how I'm ranking them. CM Punk specifically for the Summer of Punk, because at that time I was not as watching wrestling anywhere near as much as I'm watching now since I've been doing the show. And I saw that promo, and it talked me into actually buying the last WWE pay-per-view I ever bought was the Money in the Bank pay-per-view with CM Punk and John Cena. He actually convinced me to come out of my pocket $40+ to watch that pay-per-view. That's why I'm giving him credit for that. Plus, now before that, when he was coming up in WWE's version of ECW, not so much, of course, but you started seeing it in the Straight Edge Society. When he had the Straight Edge Society and he could really get that heel heat, he had people, grandmothers trying to clock him with purses. He talks about that on his DVD. He started coming into his own, and then when he started breaking down that fourth wall, talking about John Laurinaitis, talking about being a Heyman guy, talking about Lesnar leaving, and that whole thing was great. His promos against when Kevin Nash came back, and what was the one he talked? He was in the ring and he's like, oh, he was up there and he's like, my sister texted me. She's like, LOL, Kevin Nash. I thought he was dead. OMG. Stuff like that, and the click, click, click of your knees. Him being that amazing promo, which often gets forgotten. He had this promo between him and Triple H where they were going back and forth for a good 15 minutes, and it's not the typical boring Raw 15 minutes that we see now, which is like you could go up and take out the trash and come back, you haven't missed anything. That promo between those two in 2011, you can watch it now and be totally engaged in both of them going back and forth with their different philosophies, Punk being the anti-authority guy, and Triple H being the guy saying, hey, you weren't getting that reaction last year, now you are, you have achieved, and them giving their two philosophies, which they really believed in. Those things made it real. His Undertaker promos, when that feud was coming around, that made you feel it. So Punk definitely had, his delivery wasn't really unique. He doesn't have a unique voice, which the prior 4 guys on my list, McMahon, Heyman, Rhodes, Flair, they all have very distinct, unique voices. Punk didn't have that. He sounds like every comic book geek you've ever met. He's got that very, vanilla sounding voice, but it's what he was saying and how he delivered it, which made his promos stand out head and shoulders above anybody else on the roster. Then to this day, there's nobody who can touch CM Punk to steal his quote on the mic in that ring, and even as an announcer when he was announcing, he killed it. So that's why CM Punk's my number 2.
And you know what? The whole voice of the voiceless thing, you felt that. You bought that. Like, when he was talking to McMahon, he had his finger on what we were thinking. Like, a lot of these guys, and Paul Heyman has said this, they're not fans. And, CM Punk, you could see he's a fan. He knew what the fans wanted. And it's sad that they had a falling out, and who knows, never say never. But I honestly, if I was running WWE, I'd make him a head of creative one day. I'd have Foley helping people with promos. I'd have Punk running creative with Heyman. But, talent does not equal success in that company. But, just because I remember, it was that connecting thing, like we've been talking about, and that's what a good promo is. You felt he was speaking for you. It's when you hear a good rant on YouTube, or you hear a good speech, and you're just buying it. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's, it was just it's sad because it was so good, and he was like one of the few highlights of it, and now it's gone. Thomas Servoski, I apologize if I mispronounced that. He said he forgot Bockwinkel on his list. He had
Yep.
some really good ones, but that was a little before my time because I wasn't as strong as a WWF fan back then. But from what I've seen, yeah. And then Mike Ashman says Raven, who's on my almost list, and Brian Pillman are one of the greatest of all time mic workers. This is gonna get me heel heat. I like Pillman, but I think he got as far as he got on the promos because he could break rules that maybe others couldn't break. You know what I'm saying? Like he was breaking the fourth wall and kayfabe down before anyone even knew what that was, and that helped him a lot. But also he did a great job at being crazy. Yeah, so I could see it being there, but I think he had a huge advantage because the huge advantage was he was the first one breaking the rules.
Yeah. Plus, he had a good place to work at that time. WCW was just starting to build momentum, and he was originally the fulcrum in that Dungeon of Doom Four Horsemen before it was Benoit. Can we say his name? Yeah, we can say Benoit on here. Before Benoit was in the feud with Sullivan, which is legendary. It was supposed to be Pillman, and Pillman was that guy that was between the two factions that were supposed to be friends. So that gave him a great canvas to work on, and then him going to ECW and Heyman giving him just free reign, to develop his character. I don't know about his WWF stint because it really didn't last that long, and he didn't have too many promos that I can think were memorable outside of him getting his ankle broken, but that's nothing to do with mic work. So Pillman never talked me into seeing a match, so I guess that's why I don't have him higher on my list.
King DW, Darkwing Duck, 2100. He's future. He's the king in the future. 2100. King Darkwing Duck will rule us all. As far as some of my all-time favorites, Rock, Austin, Macho Man, Hogan, Razor Ramon, HBK, King Booker, and Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, the Ultimate Warrior, he was a breeding zone. And T-Man, first time I think I've ever seen him leave a comment. Thank you, and welcome to the Internet Infantry. Jake the Snake, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, The Rock, CM Punk, Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan. Nice list, T-Man. All right, we'll try to get to more comments, but now it's our number one. I will go first.
Did you do your number two?
We're at my number one.
Oh, okay.
What'd you say before that?
I didn't know if you had done your number two.
Oh, yeah, my number two was Dusty.
Okay, yeah.
My number one is I was in the Marine Corps, and in the Marine Corps there's really dangerous stuff, and there's something called Kool-Aid, and you just believe it. And we had some leaders who just didn't you didn't believe in the Kool-Aid. You didn't drink the Kool-Aid, as this slogan said. But we had this one staff sergeant who was probably, either in Marine Corps heaven or running the fucking shit, called Staff Sergeant Elliott. And we were machine gunners. I don't know if you know about machine gunners, but they are the asshole of the assholes, okay? They're the CM Punk of the Marine Corps. And we were just like, take care of the machine gunners. And it was like this guy who was the ultimate Captain America badass, looked like a bear, with a bunch of dudes that are like, yo, we're the best at what we fucking do, fuck off. So you can see how there's bad chemistry here. Dude, after a week, we were like, we'll do anything for that fucking man. Because you could cut promos. I remember one time there was barbed wire. And normally, you go and you cut the barbed wire and you go through it. He goes, there's not fucking time. Someone dive on it. And without even thinking, people dove their bodies on the barbed wire so that we could run across them. And I was just like, holy shit, that is fucking Kool-Aid. And there's a guy in pro wrestling where I believe that Kool-Aid. And I'm saying even behind the scenes, to defend him, like if I would get a tattoo of his company, I believe the company was the best, even if if I just believed in this man's Kool-Aid, and I think he's the best fucking promo cutter, and I think he could be one of the best motivational speakers. And if you go behind, and some of the behind-the-scenes promos and the documentaries are way better than anything he's did in the ring. And that's Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman, you know, he could talk anyone into anything. I worked with a lot of the ECW wrestlers afterwards, and they're just like, dude, I don't even fucking get it. Like, you know, even Raven's like, dude, I fucking been to the big time. He's like 2-3 sentences in, you're like, I'll do anything for you. And that's where the promo was. That's where that was. I mean, I remember One Night Stand. My wife is like, I never seen you this excited. I'm like, you don't understand. This right here is my pure love. You know what I mean? I I absolutely love Paul Heyman, and even to the point of, you know, one of my other hats is I'm a writer. Not a very good one. Hopefully, you'll buy my book coming out later this year. But
Plug
like
it, plug it.
people ask me all the time, like, who's your favorite storytellers? Who's a guy you look up to? And I'm saying even outside of wrestling, I'm like Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman. I would just love to learn from him. I would have loved, and I just the fucking promos he cuts. To me is just absolutely amazing. And if you can, even look how he pumps up the locker room. It was fucking amazing. The matter of fact, they even did a techno song. I'll see if I can find a link of it, of him just being like the first pay-per-view. He does a pump up like promo for backstage for the first pay-per-view, and you're just like, holy shit! I would have fucking died for that man. I would have definitely dove on the barbed wire for fucking Paul Heyman. He could have been a fucking general in the military, his fucking motivational speaking. And just the promos are fucking amazing. Even in WWF, the whole thing. And it's just, I honestly believe he's a creative genius, but his promos are crazy over the top. And if I could even be at that halfway motivated, it would be awesome. All right, who's your number one?
My number one, and this is gonna get everybody really, 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 really mad. It's The Rock. The Rock is my number one. And The Rock is my number one because I go on entertainment value, and again getting me to watch wrestling. And 1998, I would say there was a little bit of time where I kind of was just to be against the grain, was trying to pull for WCW more than WWF, and then I would switch over to Raw, and The Rock would be on, and I would not turn back to WCW. It's just like, nah, The Rock's on, so I gotta. He put he put a lot of butts in seats, and the entertainment value alone, like Dave mentioned before, the what's 2 + 2? Thomas Jefferson sucker, that whole thing. I mean, there are so many an endless list of Rock promos that legitimately will get you to laugh. Like, not like the WWE does now, where they have these stupid fake comedy segments that fall flat and nobody gives a shit. I mean, legitimately, when Rock came on and he was with Jonathan Coachman and making fun of Jonathan, making him do the Carlton dance and stick his nose, and what do you call Kevin Kelly? He called him Hermie the hermaphrodite, and all this. I mean, just constantly ragging on guys and doing it in a funny way, coming up with all those catchphrases. Although I think Vince Russo said he came up with a couple of them. I think Rock continued to come up with catchphrases after that, and he even does it to this day. To this day, a couple months ago, surprise out of nowhere, he comes on Raw, has a promo with Rusev. The entire Twitter blows up and goes, "The Rock's on Raw and he's talking to Rusev," and it's like stories all over the place. And it was just a promo. He just came out there to talk, and you got excited and you got interested and you were engaged on a show that otherwise usually isn't that engaging. Him going back and forth for John Cena, and of course the Rock concerts. Who can forget the Rock concerts, especially the ones he had in his feuds with Stone Cold and Cena. Absolutely wonderful. What was the one he was talking about? Cena kissing Eve, and she didn't know he had a wife, and all this others. I mean, just on and on and on. There's so many Rock lines that anybody can pull out and just laugh at them. There's probably a compilation on YouTube. There's probably 1,000 of them of Rock promos just all spliced together, and you just die laughing. I can't argue with the guy's skill and ability to be able to entertain an audience, even when he's cheesy, even when you know what he's going to say, you still it's The Rock. He just has that charisma and that energy to him that you just buy it and you just love it. And when he's on screen, you're like, I don't care what you say, I'm going to tweet it. Boots to asses, great, yeah, wonderful.
He could run for president. But
He
yeah,
probably would win.
he even created a word that's in the dictionary now, SmackDown. He did
SmackDown.
that.
Yes.
And also just, I wasn't as big of a Rock fan, and I wasn't a Rock hater. I just respected him. I thought he was the king of sports entertainment, and I liked pro wrestling. But if The Rock's in the movie, don't even give a shit what the movie is. You got my money. And The Rock is in so many movies making so much money. Congratulations to him and his success. But, like, even though I'm not a fan as much as, maybe you and other people, yeah, if I go and I'm like, what? A truck who eats people? Sure, Rock's in it. Here's my money. You know what I mean? So, congratulations on his success, and he's definitely the king of sports entertainment.
Yeah,
We'll
he did it.
we got a couple live comments and wrap this bad boy up because my son needs me. Boop, boop, boop. I think we're caught up on comments. If I missed your comment, I want to apologize. Sometimes I say I've got all the comments and YouTube hides them from me. Like it's like an Easter egg hunt. Like, where did that comment go? So, Rassslin Rantin, tell them where they can find you and all your wonderful videos and, I don't know, workout instructional videos and books and comic books and how-to videos.
And
Where can they
everything.
find more Rassslin Rantin besides just on beloved Coco Sports? By the way, you're always welcome here. If you're like, hey, I want to do a video, I want to do something with Coco Sports, you just bring it up. You're part of the crew. But where can they go if they just want a little less me and a little more you?
Well, if you go on to the Twitters, you can find us at twitter.com/Rassslin Rantin. That's 3 S's, RASSSLIN, Rantin, RANTIN. Of course, you can find us on YouTube. We'll have links on the bottom here. Our website is webchannel24.com/Rassslin with 3 S's. And we do all kinds of videos. There are, of course, our weekly Raw video review, which is this year being called 10 Things You Need to Know About Raw, so you don't have to watch the piece of shit. We also just started doing NXT reviews. We're doing a Ring of Honor review starting next week. Retrospective videos where we go back and look at old pay-per-views and shows. We just did one for World Class Championship Wrestling. We're putting up the WrestleMania one this week. Icons. We've done a profile of Hulk Hogan, Edge, Ravishing Rick Rude, top 10 lists, commentaries. We do a lot of different kinds of videos. So definitely check us out there. Subscribe, tweet, like, follow, whatever it is you need to do. And we appreciate all the subscriptions and all the comments.
All right, and also we'll put them on CocoSports.net, our home. And me and Rassslin Rantin, we have a dream. We might fail miserably, but we do have a dream that we'll build a community. Rassslin Rantin is going to do something along those lines, but it's going to be called a roundtable, where it brings up topic with other YouTubers. And on this channel, we're going to do with other YouTubers Fave Fives, where we're just going to have a topic and talk like we did today. To be on both of our shows, I imagine. Do you have the 18-year-old rule too? Are you kind of on that?
I'm gonna have the adults only rule just to avoid any legal ramifications.
No, but you get the mom. One time we had this. The worst part is he's my cousin. I had a 17-year-old cousin work on the site, and she read a story on Yahoo that Huffington Post sold for millions of dollars, and she's like, "Oh, you're taking advantage." I'm like, "We're not the Huffington Post." I'm sorry. Yeah. That's not the way the internet works.
Well, also, you want people who are a little bit more seasoned, have been doing it for a while, and aren't, because unfortunately, sometimes you get people who are, they don't have the reference. Like we're talking today about guys back from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and if they don't have that point of reference, it's kind of, we'll talk about Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes. Well, they weren't even, their parents weren't even dating when that happened, so it's kind of hard to have conversations like that.
Yeah. So what we ask, to be on Rassslin Rantin's Roundtable or to be on our Fave 5 is that you be over 18, because we want to try to build a community with other YouTubers, and you make your own videos. And the only reason we say, and it doesn't matter, subscribers and all that doesn't matter, but we just want to see that you can actually do it. Because sometimes, it's only YouTube, and sometimes people just freeze up or act like complete turd heads. But if we see you, hey, you're actually making videos, welcome aboard. So we're trying to rebuild the community.
Yes.
We have a secret project. but we're keeping it under wraps because I want to make sure, like, I want to get the key pieces. Like, it's like getting an expansion NFL team. I'm like, all right, Rassslin Rantin's quarterback. All right, got this guy. He's going to be running back. Once we got a team, we're going to launch the secret project.
Yes. And I just want to say one last thing about the round table and building the community. The intention on my part is because I'm part of other YouTube communities. You guys don't know about that because I don't link them together. I probably should, but I'm
Cheese? Punk and cheese.
exactly. I'm a minor member in the movie review community. I'm a minor member in the ASMR community, if anybody of you know what that is, and football community and writing community. And the one thing that those communities have that you will find if you watch AMC Movie Talks, and they have those roundtable discussions of a bunch of different guys, the Schmoes and Jeremy Johns and this guy and that guy from different podcasts, they'll get together frequently and talk with each other because it's a community. And same thing with the other ones. The wrestling community, and Dave and I have talked about this before, is a little bit tougher to do that because we're all kind of split off, and we're not going to get into the reasons why because I don't really know. But we're just trying to get them together and trying to build an actual community because the community is people who talk together and help out and go on each other's shows, and we just build it that way. It's better to build together than to be individual, so that's the whole point.
All right, so please check out Rassslin Rantin. Please check out cocosports.net. I could talk wrestling all day. Rassslin Rantin, hopefully when both of our schedules free up, we'll do another Fave 5. We have to do a roundtable, so we're going to be working on projects together left and right. Thank you for being on the show. Everyone, please like, comment, subscribe, both of us, because deep down inside, when we get a new subscription, it makes us feel so good. And you thought that plug was going to go in an awkward place.
I thought there were going to be kittens brought up there at some point.
All right. So like, comment, subscribe. Check out Rassslin Rantin stuff. Check out our stuff. And check out cocosports.net. All right. Thank you, Rassslin Rantin. Thank you, Internet Imagery. Thank you guys that left live comments. We'll be back. Both of us will be back on our separate channels to do Raw reviews. So, Rassslin Rantin, thank you. Anything else you want to say before I say the magic words?
That'll be it.
All right, and with that, I am over. Bum, 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 ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.